Welcome to the Spiritually Lit meeting. Each week, we're honored to host powerful speakers from around the world, sharing their stories, experiences, and hope with us. All of our speakers are recorded and shared through the Gram YouTube channel and the audio speaker WhatsApp groups, so the message can reach those who need it. If you're listening to this recording and you're struggling, seeking help, or simply have a question, please do not hesitate to reach out. You can contact us anytime at spirituallylit24 at gmail.com, and we promise to get back to you. And tonight, we have invited Eric S. to share his experience on the topic spectacular upheavals for the next 45 minutes. After that, the meeting will be open for sharing back. Eric, we will give you a sign 10 minutes before the time is up. We thank you so much for making the time and come share your experience with us. And without further ado, I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate you very much. Good evening, everybody. My name is Eric. I'm an alcoholic. I am a recovered alcoholic, and I recovered as a result of going through the 12 steps, precisely how they're laid out in the big book. I love that you guys, clarify in the beginning that this is, the seriousness of this situation, of what we suffer from, because, I've been to a lot of meetings over the years, and I can tell you that there seems to be like a consistent thread that runs through a lot of meetings out there, not here, but at other meetings, is that it seems like people approach this as though this is the difference between having a good day or having a bad day, right? And we miss the gravity of this, which is it's the difference between life or death. It literally is the difference between life or death. And we can lose that sometimes sitting in these rooms where, we're talking about our day, we're talking about the weather, where are you, where are you located, what part of the world, I'm on Zoom, I've got all these luxury, and we can kind of forget about this. We can lose this stuff. Um, but that's the purpose of having this meeting here. There's a number of purposes of having a meeting. It's for the newcomer when they come in, that they can get the message, that we can be here to carry the message to them. But then it's also for people like myself that I have the honor and the privilege and the opportunity to fulfill my responsibility, which is to continue to carry this message to other alcoholics, right? Because it was so freely given to me. And that's what I want to do here today. And I was told the topic is spectacular upheavals, which is fantastic. I love that. Upheaval, it's a good thing it's spectacular upheavals, because spectacular is, something that's going to be grand and really impressive. Um, because I've had plenty upheavals in my life, which are incredibly disruptive, right? And they kind of rearrange the order of things. Like when you get arrested and you have to go to jail, that's an upheaval. That is totally rearranged the order of my life, right? No longer free. I am now under a custodial sentence, and I am under the power of the state, if you will. And I'm not in that position today. Where else I'm not? I'm not under the lash of alcoholism. I'm not under the power and the order and direction of untreated alcoholism or even alcoholism. Today I've got a new employer. I have a new father. I have a principal. He's the director, and he runs the show. And I check in daily. But that's not the way that it was when I first came to the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. That is not the way that it was. I came to AA and CA and all of these places, thinking that I had a problem with alcohol and cocaine and weed and all of the other stuff. And really what happened, and I didn't know this, was that cocaine and alcohol and all the other stuff was my solution. It was my solution, right? And so when I say, I talk about the day that I stopped drinking, and I'll hear people talk about, we were separated from alcohol, we were separated from cocaine at this point, and we kind of celebrate that day. And I think it's awesome that we do celebrate that day. But that doesn't mean that I was separated from my disease. It doesn't mean that I'd recovered at that point. Really, what happened was I was separated from the solution that I believed was going to be my only solution, right? And then I'm left with this hole in my heart, and I'm left with this blank in my mind where I don't know what to do. And this is where AA comes into place. This is where CA comes into place. This is where this meeting comes into place. For those folks that come walking in here that are ready to give up their solution because their solution has betrayed them, and they're in this place where they can't pull it off anymore. I'm thinking about this guy. He called me this morning. He calls me all the time, and he lives in Norway. And he called me. He was drunk again. I knew he'd be drunk, and he was drunk and he was high and he was going through the whole thing. And then he was sitting with his girlfriend and she said, "Listen, I've got a room for you at a rehab. Will you go?" And he looked at me, we were FaceTime. He said, "Should I go?" And I said, "Absolutely, you should go. Yeah, why not? Absolutely. I mean, what do you have to lose?" And he said, "All right." So he gets off. About 20 minutes later, he calls me. He's got this big smile on his face. He's like, "I escaped. I escaped. I ran out of the rehab. I'm not going there." And he was on his way over to the bar, and then he called me back from the bar, and there he was drinking, all lit up again. Um, and he would ask me, how do I stop doing this? How did you stop doing this? Where do you find it? Like, how are you able to not drink one day at a time? How are you able to say no to the drugs one day at a time? And I'm going to be honest with you, I don't have the power to say no. I don't have the power. I'm not doing this. I'm not doing this. Something has occurred in my life, which is indeed miraculous. There was an upheaval in my life, and it was a spiritual upheaval. And some of these moments did occur suddenly. But I've got to be honest with you, while those were powerful and they were spectacular, and I was in awe of those moments, they probably were not the most powerful moments that I have of upheaval. Some of the most powerful moments were the ones that were of educational variety, that happened slowly, that happened gradually, where I began to wake up on a daily basis in a new awareness, beginning to recognize that something was happening in my life that wasn't of myself anymore, right? Because what was of myself was complete destruction. What was of myself was annihilation of all things worthwhile in my life. What was of myself was that I'm gonna drink again, and that's what the first step promises us. That is the guaranteed first step promise. Now they don't put it in black and white like that, but they give us a number of ways they describe that this is the guarantee. Because right off the top and how it works, it tells us that we were powerless over alcohol. So if I'm powerless over alcohol, that means I got zero power. I mean, I have no power. I got none, no power whatsoever. And if I don't have any power whatsoever, that means that that's going to determine what's going to happen. That drug, that alcohol is going to determine whether I'm going to drink or not, right? So when I go through the doctor's opinion, what I discover is this. I discover that I've got this allergy of the body, this phenomenon of craving, that I am physically different than the rest of the people around me. I'm physically different. I have an abnormal reaction to alcohol. That once I put alcohol in my body, I can no longer control the amount that I'm going to drink or when I'm going to stop. That was pretty much the same way with cocaine. You put a pile of cocaine in front of me and you said, "Hey, you want to do a line?" I'm like, "No, dude, no, I don't want it. Are you, no, I don't want one line. I want to do that whole pile. That's what I want to do." And that's exactly what my plan is. I remember the first time I snorted cocaine. They put like this little 2-inch line in front of me, like 3 centimeters wide. And I was like, "What is that?" I want one of them big effers like you see in the movies. I wanted 3-footer. I want it to be 2 inches wide. That's what I wanted, right? And see, this is the way that my mom were, and that's the way that it was. The first time I did LSD, they were passing around the blotter, right? And everybody was ripping one off and putting it in. They handed it to me. I didn't know I was supposed to rip one off and just take one. I put the whole damn thing in my mouth. And like 5 minutes later, they're like, "Where's the rest of it?" And I was like, that was it. I only got one. And they were like, "No, I handed you the whole sheet." And I was like, "Bro, you handed me one piece." They were like, "They're all connected. You got to pull them up." I said, "Well, I ate them all." And they said, "You're in for a ride, bro. You are in for a ride." You know, and see, I didn't know this stuff. I didn't know these things, right? And that was a sudden and spectacular upheaval in my life that afternoon. I can tell you that. That was something out of this world. It was otherworldly. And this is the way that, you know, I'm getting my point to this is that I am categorically different from normal people. I think differently with regard to alcohol. I think differently with regard to drugs. If I came into the house and I plopped down a pile of cocaine in front of my wife and I said, "Do you want to do a line?" She said, "No, I'd actually like you to leave. I don't want that stuff in my house." That's the way that it would go. Me, you call me up. I'm like, "Bro, let me get the red carpet out." I mean, come on. This is, yes, I want to do them. Come over. Do I want to drink? Am I breathing? Of course I want to drink. If I'm breathing, I want to drink. So when I put this stuff into my body, there's this thing that happens, and they call it the phenomenon of craving. This is with regard to alcohol. And when that alcohol gets into my body, this craving is triggered, which means that my body will physically crave alcohol, even though my mind may be telling me, "Eric, you said you were only going to have two tonight. That you said that was the promise you made. You're only going to have two. You got to stick to that." But my body is now saying, "No, dude, that is not what's going to happen. You are going to drink until I say you're done drinking." And these are the three things that separate me from alcohol once I've started drinking. is this. I either pass out, the alcohol is just completely gone. There's no more alcohol, or I am physically removed from the alcohol, typically by the police. That's the only time that I stop drinking once I've started, right? Otherwise, that phenomenon of craving is just going to dictate what I'm going to do. I am going to keep on going. I'm going to keep trucking. Now, here's the insane thing about this is that in my mind, I made that decision that I was only going to have 2 drinks. But somehow in my mind, this physical craving tricks my mind into believing that I've decided that I would have more, that I've actually made that decision. But the truth is that I didn't make that decision. It's kind of like being allergic to bees and making a decision once you get stung that you're going to go into anaphylactic shock. You don't have that choice. You're going into that shock if you're allergic to bees once you're stung, period, right? But in my mind, I believe I've made that decision. Dr. Silkworth gives this solution. In the doctor's opinion, Dr. Silkworth says, and we hear it, and it gets bastardized all the time in the meetings, and you hear it, I'm sure everybody's heard it before. He tells us that the only relief that we have to suggest, the only relief is complete abstinence, which then that has been translated into, and you hear it carried in meetings all the time, just don't drink no matter what. Just don't drink no matter what. But the fact of the matter is that I'm powerless and I'm going to drink no matter what. And Silkworth follows this up in the doctor's opinion. He says in the very next paragraph, he says, but the chronic alcoholic is doomed. The chronic alcoholic is doomed. Why? Because I'm mentally different. Tells us in There's a Solution that the main problem for the alcoholic centers in the mind, not in the body. Not in the body. If it were just the body, it would be academic. Don't drink, no problem. Your problem is solved. Don't put alcohol in your body. You don't trigger the phenomenon of craving, no allergic reaction. You're good to go. My problem is that I've got a mind that cannot differentiate the true from the false. And I don't know the truth. I don't know the truth. I don't know the lie. And I'm simply going to go back and I'm going to drink that alcohol because my mind is going to tell me that it's a good idea. This time it's going to be different. Let me tell you how it's going to be different. Let me explain to you why it's going to be different this time. Outsiders who are non-alcoholics look at us and they say, this guy's absolutely insane. But in my mind, put me on a lie detector test, and I promise you, I am not lying. I honestly believe it. I am literally delusional. I believe that it's going to be different this time. I will pass that lie detector test. Yet, I'll go back out, I'll drink, and it'll repeat the same thing over and over and over again. Then I am a baffled lot. I don't know why. I simply don't know why. Now, they say that the problem centers in the mind, not in the body, but they don't say that the mind is the problem. They say that the problem centers in the mind. See, my mind is not the problem. My mind is not the problem, but the problem is centered in there, right? What I've learned over time by going through this book, the book Alcoholics Anonymous, the big book, is that when we get into We Agnostics, it tells me what my real problems are. See, everything that I've been describing, these are part of the symptoms of the illness. These are symptoms of the illness. They're not necessarily the illness of this itself, and it's not necessarily the main problem for the alcoholic or for the drug addict or the cokehead or whatever sex addict, whatever it is that you're dealing with. And it's all evil. It's all evil. I'll tell you, it destroys us all. It tells us in We Agnostics, and it tells us very, very clearly. I want to read it right out of the book here. Give me 2 seconds here. I'm getting there. It says, and I mean, I know it off the top of my head. I just don't want to mangle it just in case. It says, lack of power. That is our dilemma. Not alcohol, not cocaine, not drugs, not sex, not anything else. Not people out there, not the rest of the world, not my ex-wife, not my ex-husband, not my job, not my former boss, not the prison guard, not the warden, not the court system, not the laws, not the school. None of that is my problem. Lack of power, that is my problem. Well, they told us in the first step that lack of power was my problem, that I'm powerless over alcohol. And then the second step, step 2, it talks about this idea of what my life looks like without any access to God, without any God, where I am playing God, where Eric's in control, right? And when I first came into the rooms, you would have, I would have said, guys, first off, I'm an atheist, okay? I'm not buying this nonsense. But that got blown up really quickly, very, very quickly, this idea of being an atheist. And because being an atheist, what I've got to believe is this, and I've got to stake my life on it and have 100% faith in it. So as an atheist, I have to live faithfully to this idea, in faith that what I believe is true. And I'm going to have to stake my life on it. And that's this, is that life was created out of non-life. I've yet to ever see that in my experience. The 55 years I've been walking this earth, I have never seen life come out of nothing. This water bottle, I promise you, will never produce anything. It is just what it is. It's not going to. It does not have a consciousness and it's not going to produce any life. And I've never seen life come out of nothing. I have never seen order come out of complete chaos without some form of intervention occurring. Period. That's it. That's the reality. Now I'm going to have to stake my life on the fact that somehow order is going to have to suddenly appear with no intervention whatsoever. That everything, all these precise laws that we have in our universe, throughout the entire universe, that these just suddenly came into play, just suddenly, and they're precise, and they have to be precise because if the speed and rotation of the Earth were to vary even slightly, there's one or two things that's going to happen. We are literally going to fly off of this planet or we are going to crash into one another and blow each other to smithereens. It's got to be precise. That's the reality, right? Many things that I saw and I believed with my eyes, I believed I needed these facts. I needed to understand these things, right? Visual proof. Our book tells us that visual proof is the weakest of all proof. But I rely on my visual proof. I need this. But here's the thing. Here's the thing. There are many things that I see visually that I will stake my life on being true, and I'll be completely wrong. Completely wrong. For example, I go outside and I look at the moon and I'll point right out and I'll say that's exactly where it is, but that ain't where it is. That's where it was 4 minutes ago because it takes 4 minutes for that light to get to my eyes. So that's not where it is, but I'll stake my life on it because that's where I see it. But all I'm seeing is the light traveling to my eyes. That moon's already moved. It's not in that same place in that sky. But yet that visual evidence that I see in my mind, I'll stake my life on it. Right? Go through my entire life like that. Goes on, it says, lack of power, that was our dilemma. We had to find a power by which we could live. And it had to be a power greater than ourselves. Shortest one, there's only 2 times this sentence occurs in the book, a one-word sentence. This is my favorite one. Obviously. Obviously. Like, obviously, it's got to be a power greater than me. I love that because whenever I read that sentence, I always hear duh in my head. Duh, it's got to be more powerful than me. I don't have the power. I know this. See, when I came in here, I was told don't drink and go to meetings. Change people, places, and things. Keep your memory green. Do all of these wonderful, and they all sound good. But I gotta tell you, those are suggestions for people with drinking problems. Those are not suggestions for alcoholics. They're just not. They're helpful, but they are not your solution. They're not going to solve your problem. Because I'm going to tell you, my experience was this. I drank in places where I never drank before, with people I never drank with before, doing things I'd never done before. And guess what? My memory was green right up to the moment that it wasn't. Because I know exactly what I was doing that morning before 8 o'clock. And my memory was fresh and green and lush. And about a half hour after all of that, I'm walking across a parking lot. I hear my name being shouted from the other side of the parking lot. And I do a 90-degree turn and I go right over to that van. I jump in, the door slides behind me. And before my butt hits the seat, I've got a Lowenbrow in my hand and it's in my mouth. I don't even know why I did that. There was no thought that went into it. Our book talks about it and it refers to it as a strange mental blank spot. That I don't have the power. I don't have the power to bring in my memory with sufficient force the pain and suffering of a week or a month ago. I don't have it. Lack of power again. Lack of power again. It says that I've got this mind that on one side of my mind, it's going to have a sane thought, a very sane, rational thought. Wake up this morning. I'm not going to drink today. I'm not going to do any drugs today. I'm going to be a good boy today. I've got morals and I've got this philosophical conviction that I want to live by. And it brings me comfort when I can live by it. But right up to the point that I can't, then I'm in trouble. So here's the thing. I wake up, I'm going to live this way. This is how I'm going to live. And then around 10 a.m., for whatever reason, there's this switch that flips on the other side of my head. And it starts thinking about drinking this weekend. We're getting close. And I think there's a big game this weekend. And I think, you know what? You know what I've never had? I've never had Zima before. Maybe I'll try some Zima. Zima, just even saying that sounds awesome. Zima comes off, just rolls off the tongue. I bet you that's spectacular when you drink that, right? And that's the insane thought that starts going through my mind. And I think, well, maybe I could probably dabble in a little bit of something else, right? Maybe some other things that'll be there. And then what happens is that this side of my mind says, Eric, that's insane. You don't want to do that. You can't do that. You're going to get in trouble. You're going to lose your job. You're going to lose your house. You're going to lose your wife, all of this stuff. But on this side, it says, no, but if you do it this way, it's going to be different. This time it's going to be, you've been separated from drugs and alcohol for this long, dude. I think it's really okay for you to just dip a toe back in and you can go back into it. I think it's going to be all right. And what happens is that over a period of time, and this can happen. This can take place over a morning. This can take place over an entire day or over weeks or months where I run into this battle where there's this battle going back and forth in my head. But eventually, what's going to happen is that this insane thought is going to give way to some trivial excuse for why I should drink and I should go for it. And this is what happens. I repeat the same thing over and over again. I am, again, a baffled lot, and I literally have no legitimate excuse or explanation for why I took to drink, other than it just seemed like a good idea at the time. It just seemed like a good idea. Yeah, I suspected I probably shouldn't do it. I suspected I probably shouldn't do it. But see, I don't have the power to do this. So our book tells us that I've got to be restored to sanity. It tells me that my problem is lack of power. So the way I like to talk about lack of power is like this. If I am dehydrated, there's going to be a lot of symptoms, right? We know what the symptoms are. You get tight skin, you get weak, you get dizzy, you feel sick to your stomach, and all of this. Those are all the symptoms of dehydration. But dehydration is not my problem. It is not my problem. What my problem is lack of hydration. I need water. That's my problem. I don't have water. I don't have hydration. What I'm experiencing is the symptoms. So when we say that we've got this spiritual malady, because the book tells us later on that when the spiritual malady is overcome, we straighten out mentally and physically. The spiritual malady is literally the manifestation of lack of power. What I need to get is I need to get power. And the moment that I gain power in my life, the spiritual malady starts to become overcome. It starts to disappear. Maybe suddenly, maybe spectacularly, maybe slowly through an educational variety. But it does start to disappear once I gain that power. And that's been my dilemma all along. But see, I didn't know that that's what my problem was. I've been programmed all of my life. Go out there, make something of yourself, be somebody. You got to work harder, get an education. You need more letters after your name, Eric. Two master's degrees isn't enough. Get a PhD and get another master's degree for fun. Do all of those things. You get those, then you're going to be okay. The house that you have isn't big enough. You need multiple houses. The wife that you have, you need multiple wives. You need all of these different things. You need all of this stuff to fill the hole in your heart. And I go after these things and they fail me miserably. They fail me miserably. What I need is a faster car. I need a new car. I need a Ferrari. I need a Lambo. I need a Bugatti. I need all of these things. And I believe that if I get all of these things, then my problem is going to be solved. Some of us, it's even on a smaller level. Some people are like, I just need to get out from behind this cash register, man. I got to stop being a janitor. I got to stop being a janitor. I'm dead serious. Some people are in those positions, and there's no shame in that, man. Take pride in where you're at right now. There is absolutely no problem with that, right? What I'm saying is that wherever we're at, there's always something on the other side that we think if I can get that, if I can achieve that, if I receive that, then I'm gonna be okay, right? There's always something. I've got news for you. A lot of the things that I mentioned I don't have, but some of them I do. Okay, some of them I do. And when I got them, I sat there and I say, why is my life, why do I not feel any different? Why do I actually feel uncomfortable? Why am I disappointed that I've achieved this goal? Why is it? Why do I feel the disappointment? Right? Because I had these expectations that it was going to fill the hole in my heart, and it's never going to do that. It's simply never going to do that. So when I get into this We Agnostics with my original sponsor, he said, I'm going to show you how you've had a higher power all of your life, how you've worshiped a higher power all of your life. And I thought this is going to be fun because it's just simply not true. But the truth is that it was true. It was 100% true. See, what I worshiped in the very beginning was my mother. Right out of the gate, I was a mama's boy. I loved my mom. She was my God, period. But then she betrayed me. She betrayed me when I was younger, and it was a really, really evil betrayal. She didn't mean to harm me, but it hurt and it devastated me and it changed the trajectory of my life from a very young age. We're going to laugh about it, but it's true, okay? And this is what happened. I was so clingy, she knew she needed to gain separation from me, so she took me to nursery school. All right? Now, I'm holding on to her, man. I'm telling you, this is a true story. I'm holding on to this woman. I do not want to let her go. I'm scared to death. My mom is my God. Wherever she is, that's where I want to be. Now she knows she's got to gain this separation, so she plays this little trick on me when she takes me into nursery school. And this is this. She gets me distracted with the other ladies that are there, and we're talking, and we're playing little games. And my mom slowly tiptoes, sneaks out of the room, and she's out of the building. And I see her out the window walking down the sidewalk to the car. Immediately, I go into full blown panic and terror. And I run out of that building. I go screaming down the sidewalk and I grab onto her and I'm crying and I start yelling at her. How could you do this to me? Why would you leave me? You don't love me. Da 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 da. And this is what she does. She tells me I've got to stop crying. She's bringing me back in. She marches me back in, right? And she leaves me there. And now I'm sitting there, and as a sweet girl, I probably owe, I know I owe this woman amends, but I mean, I was pretty young. But the deal, she's probably gone by now. But she came over to me with a chocolate chip cookie and one of those little Dixie cups with some milk in it. And she's like, "Do you want a cookie?" And I proceeded to kick her right in her mouth, broke her lip, split it wide open with my little leather shoes, just blasted her right in the mouth. You get away from me, woman. That's where I was at. Because you see, what happened was that my God just betrayed me. And it was in that moment that I made a decision that I was going to have to fend for myself. I didn't know that that's what was happening, but I can look back at it now. And from that moment on, I trusted my mom a little bit less. I always believed that she would leave me. I always believed that she didn't truly love me, right? And that if my mom didn't truly love me, then the rest of the family didn't truly love me, right? So I sit there with my family on a regular basis, feeling like I'm not loved, I'm not a part of, I'm not worthy of the food on this table, and do not trust a single one of these people. That's the way it all translated in my mind. Now, a normal kid just simply goes to nursery school, has a good time, and is happy to see mom when she comes back to pick him up. I ain't normal. I ain't normal. So that was my first God, right? The next God was around 8, 9 years old when my father introduced me to Manhattans and Winston cigarettes. True story. Sitting in the living room Sunday afternoon, he's watching the golf. That's what he did every Sunday. I bounce back and forth between my mother and father sipping off the Manhattans. One afternoon, my father hands me the whole Manhattan, his whole glass, and he says, "Go ahead, knock it off, finish it, kid." And then he holds his cigarette up and he holds it back for me because I'm standing over his shoulder. He says, "Take a drag." I took a drag. I coughed my brains out. He thought it was hilarious. And then he handed me the cigarette. He says, "Go ahead, you can finish it." I'm 8 years old and I started smoking Winston cigarettes and drinking Manhattans at that point, right? Guess what? I suddenly feel like I've arrived. I feel like my father does love me. I feel like I am a part of. I feel important. I feel like an adult. I feel different from everybody else, right? And it was just through that simple act. This became my higher power. I worship Sundays now. I couldn't wait for the weekends to come so I could bounce back and forth, right? And I started to worship alcohol. I started to worship um, these I'll tell you, I'll describe it to you. This is the way I can describe it. I started a beer can collection, right? And a lot of people in the neighborhood thought that I was a really great kid because I used to walk the country roads with plastic bags and pick up all the beer cans and throw them in there. They thought, God, he's great. This kid's really altruistic. He's a nature lover and all that. The truth is, I could give a crap about any of that stuff. The only thing I was picking up was the beer cans. I was leaving all the rest of the rubbish there. I would just bring the beer cans home. I would clean them and I would put them up on these shelves. The basement, finally, when we got rid of that thing, my parents sold that house, there was thousands of beer cans. They were like, "What do you want to do with them?" I said, "You could probably get $500 for all of them if you just crush them up and take them over to the recycling place." There were so many of them. So at any rate, I started worshiping these things. And this is what happened was that I knew that alcohol was going to do something for me. See, I felt that experience, the alcohol going down my esophagus, that burn, that blast that goes through when you take that first sip, but I didn't feel the full effects of alcohol yet. Hadn't felt that. That comes at 10. And this is where alcohol became my God. All right. On this night, I was 10 years old. My buddy Mike, his mother had just gotten a divorce. She got the house, she got the beach house, she got the car. She did really well in the divorce, but she was brokenhearted. She wanted another man, and she was taking her girlfriends down to the beach house. So it's a Friday afternoon, middle of August. They get in the car, they leave, and I'm at the house with Mike. I'm 10, he's 12. His sister's, I think, 4 years older. She's like 16 years old. And she's in charge of all of us. No way she was going to be able to control us. And before the exhaust even cleared out of the garage, I said to Mike, I said, "Let's make cocktails." And he was like, "What? I don't know what's a how do you make a cocktail?" I said, "Don't worry about it. Just go grab the orange juice." So we grabbed the orange juice. I grabbed the vodka. We get the glasses and we start making vodka and orange juice, a screwdriver. The first one that I had, no burn, not enough vodka. I poured a little bit out, go through this a few different times, keep sipping, no burn. Eventually we get back to that 90-10 ratio, 90% vodka, 10% orange juice. Bingo. That's where the burn was. That was the sweet spot. And I chugged that thing down as fast as I could. And there was this burn. I mean, it was a horrendous burn. And I loved it. And I said, Mike, when I came in through the garage, brother, there were 6 packs of beer up on the shelf. Let's drink some of them beers. And he said, no, my mom's going to know. And I said, dude, she's not going to know. You just take it from the back row. Don't be a wimp. Come on, dude. So he's like, all right, fine, go grab some. And it's warm. It's disgusting. It's Michelob. First off, Michelob's gross. Sorry if any of you guys were Michelob drinkers. It's just terrible. So it was a terrible beer. Then it's been sitting in the garage in August. It's like 120 degrees in that garage. That beer is nasty. And I start drinking that and it gets stuck in my throat because my body wants to throw it up because it's just gross. I get that little elevator and I got to hold my mouth and I force it down. And I am just I mean, I'm just obsessed with getting as much alcohol into me as I possibly can. And this is what happens. I start drinking some of Mike's vodka and orange juice. And then suddenly out of the blue, and this all happens in about 5 minutes, suddenly out of the blue, like a tsunami, like a full force gale, this feeling comes over me that I had never experienced before in my entire life. I became warm all over. I became tingly. My mind started to open up, and my chest, this thing, my soul just breathed this sigh of relief. And all the weight of the world went rolled right off my shoulders. All the pressure rolled right off of my shoulders. I no longer felt dumb. I no longer felt ugly. I no longer felt less than. I no longer felt inadequate. I suddenly felt worthy. I felt intelligent. I felt attractive. I thought I could fight like Mike Tyson. And I said out loud, I need alcohol every single day of my life. Because, see, I knew that there was something to being drunk. I knew there was something to it. I suspected it all along. Now I've struck gold, and alcohol became my God. But this is where it betrayed me, and it did it to me almost every single time. Is that Mike's standing in front of me, and he's like, dude, you're crazy. You need to calm down. You're out of control. My sister's getting upset. She's going to call the police. And I'm like, let her call the police. I don't care. I'll take on the world. I don't, you know what I mean? I'm just on fire right now. And then Mike is standing there, and then there's two mics, and then there's three mics, there's four mics, and everything starts spinning and floating around. And I'm starting to wobble. I can't find my space. And we all know what this feeling is when it comes on. I'm about ready to get sick, man. And this is what happens. I bend over and I lean over the side of that deck and I start praying. I said, God, if you will remove this feeling from me, I promise, I swear I'll never drink again. I promise you, I will never touch another drop of alcohol. And man, just projectile vomiting all over the place. And this went on, this whole thing. I went in and out of blackout, pass out for about 48 to 72 hours that entire weekend into the week. Eventually, I end up back at my house with my parents. I am in deep, deep, deep trouble. It is not good because a lot of things happened over those 48, 72 hours. It was a bad deal. But ultimately, this is what happened. I am terribly hungover. I'm in a world of pain. My eyes are popping out of my head like they're on springs. My mouth is dry as could be. My body aches. My head is just pounding. And finally, I'm able to just get a little bit of water into my body. I get rehydrated. I start to feel a little bit better. I've got this donut, it's a chocolate glazed donut. I'm eating it like a bird. I'm just taking little pieces off of it and eating it. But eventually, I start to feel a little bit better. And then I start going through the course of the events, right? Because you remember I swore off alcohol. And I started thinking, what happened? How did this happen? Like, how could this have happened? Why this betrayal? Like, why would this happen to me? And what I discovered was this, and it's absolutely insane. And this is the insanity of it, right? Is that I realized that that warm Michelob probably had botulism, right? That's why I was like, that was my conclusion. I think I got poisoned. It was botulism. And then I mixed that warm beer with fruit juice, the orange juice. I said, nobody ever does that. It's disgusting. That would make anybody sick. This is ridiculous. If I never did that, I would never have gotten sick. This would have never happened. I can drink if I never ever mix those two together again. Within 48 hours, I'm drinking again. I'm not drinking vodka and orange juice. I'm not drinking more warm Michelob. But guess what happens? After a couple hours, I start, I'm puking 10 feet straight up in the air and I'm blacking out, passing out, and I go on another run for 48 hours. I'm still 10 years old. I pursued alcohol like that every single day of my life. I lied to people, I stole to people, I broke into people's houses, and if it wasn't going to be alcohol, I was going to take your drugs. It didn't matter, whatever it was. That's what I started to worship. So I literally turned my will and my life over to the care of alcohol on a daily basis. And this is what I said. I said, I don't care what you do. You can take my family. You can take my education. You can take my athletics. You can take my dreams. You can have it all. I don't care. Just get in my body and give me that feeling. Just give me relief. I literally worshiped it. I turned my life over to it. And I wouldn't have told you that I had a higher power, but that's the truth. And then fast forward, I make it into the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous, and then I'm told, don't drink, go to meetings, and your life will get better than your wildest dreams. I told you that I went back out. Then I had a long period of sobriety sitting in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. And I'm hearing people say, it's going to get better than your wildest dreams. It's going to blow your mind, all this stuff. And I'm like, dude, when? When? Because I ain't drinking. And I'm doing everything you asked me to do, baby. I'm doing it all. I'm going to your meetings. I'm setting up. I'm making coffee. I'm greeting people. I'm greeting the people I don't like. Here comes Fat Tony. Look at this big fat slob. I hope he falls on his face. What's going on, Tony? Good to see you, bro. And he walks by. I'm polite to him, but I'm thinking, God, I hope he has a heart attack in the meeting. How awesome would that be? And then here comes Tina over here, the girl that turned me down. She wouldn't go on a date. And I'm positive. I'm like, here she comes, this little SLUT. Here she comes. Don't shake my hand. I don't want your STDs. That's what I'm thinking in my head, right? I'm so mean. That's how I am. I am just irritable. I'm restless. I'm discontented. I'm page 52. I'm filled with the bedevilments. I can't see it be of real use to anybody. I am a prey to misery and depression. I'm filled with anger and jealousy and self-pity all the time. I'm not drinking, going to meetings, and you're telling me it's going to get better than my wildest dreams. When? How? How? What's that going to look like? When's that going to happen? And I arrive at a point where I say, F it. I got these four guys over here I don't like. They've all betrayed me, and I'm going to kill these guys. And once I kill those guys, I'm going to take myself out. And I started figuring out, thank you very much, 10 minutes. I started figuring out exactly how I'm going to kill these guys, right? And then I'm figuring out how I'm going to kill myself. Here was the problem. I wasn't sure that I could kill these guys without getting caught before I actually could kill myself. And then my concern was when I kill myself, I don't want my parents or anybody that I love to find my body. So there was this place that I used to go fishing that I loved. And I was trying to figure out how I could actually get out into the lake with a couple 100 pounds of rocks on my body, shoot myself in the head, sink to the bottom, and let the turtles and the fish do their deal. Right? That's what I was trying to figure out how I could pull all of this off. And it took a few days thinking of this, and I was going through it, and I was really ironing out all the plans because I was dead serious on this. But this is what happened. We want to talk about this idea of spectacular upheavals. This is exactly what happened. While this is happening, I live in Princeton, New Jersey. I lived, and I live in New Jersey, Princeton now, but I was recovering back then in Princeton. I left Princeton, but I've returned. So I'm in Princeton. It's the end of the 80s, early 90s. It's a very conservative town at the time. And there's this guy who's walking through town. He's got a shaved head. He shaves it, and he leaves this rhino horn tuft of hair in the front. When I say rhino horn, he molded it into a rhino horn, and it was rainbow colored. I don't care where you go today, anywhere you go, he's going to fit in looking like that. Floor of Congress, you could walk on the floor of Congress and speak down there. Nobody would think twice about it today. Back then, I thought this is a transient homeless dude. He's going to steal people. He's going to steal money from people. He's going to rob the place. Totally judged the hell out of him. But this is what happened. I'm sitting in this meeting one Monday night, and this freak walks into this meeting. And I said, he's going to steal the basket. Watch this bugger. And I'm jacked up. I am jacked up. And I'm going to be the hero of AA. When he takes that basket, I am going to crush this dude's back in the door jam. Just going to tackle him, break him to pieces. And nobody's going to be angry. Everybody's going to be happy about it because he was stealing AA money. You don't do that, right? Happens all the time. But you know what I'm saying. You don't do that stuff, right? So here's the deal. The basket comes around. He throws a few bucks in it, passes it on. And I noticed that he put more in than other people. And I said, he's trying to tease people. He's trying to convince people to put more money in. He's trying to fill that basket up. I know what he's doing. And I watched him, but he never took that basket. When the meeting opened up for sharing, he put his hand in the air and he says, my name's Tommy. I'm a recovered alcoholic. I've recovered from a seemingly hopeless state of mind and body as a result of going through the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous, precisely how they're laid out in the big book. And I can still hear his voice today. I can still hear it. And I can still hear the emphasis on certain words and the way he would hit his S's. I remember it so clearly. And this guy was this tiny little guy. He wasn't a big guy. He was like 5'6", maybe 145 pounds. Still looked like a freak. And I'm listening to him. And he goes on, he shares this tremendous share. And he talks about how he was homicidal and suicidal sitting in the rooms. He talked about how while he lived in Russia, as a transfer student, he got arrested over there for drinking with police officers over there and ended up in jail for trying to steal their guns or some of their equipment, whatever it was he was trying to steal, right? He shares all of this stuff. And then he shares about how he's back here. And he talks about how God entered it into his heart in a way that which is indeed miraculous. And God did for him what he could not do for himself. And this is what happened. Normally, when I would hear someone say that, I'd say, "Oh, piss off. Don't come at me with this stuff God did for you, all of this stuff." But the way he was sharing it, it was clear that he was truly sharing his own personal experience because he wasn't preaching it. He was simply saying that this is what happened to me. You can believe it or not. That's up to you. And God had played a trick on me. I didn't know it. But God had chosen this man to be the man that was going to save my life. And when I heard all of this come from him, my jaw hit the floor and I knew that I had to ask this guy to take me through that process. So I walked over to him after the meeting. And this is what I said. I said, "Hey, dude, check it out." Right? Because that's the way I talk. Check it out. I think, I think maybe, I want to try that stuff, some of that stuff that you did. Would you sponsor me? And he says, "It would be my honor." And I want to punch him right in his face. I want to blast him because that's such an obnoxious thing to say to someone, "Be my honor." What a smug thing. I was like, this guy's full of crap, your honor. I just found the first chink in his armor, right? But the truth is that he has had that sudden and spectacular upheaval occur in his life. He's on the other side. He's recovered. And what he heard me say was not what I was saying. But what I said came out of my mouth was different than what I was really saying. Because I walked over to him and what I was really saying was, "Brother, I'm dying. I'm dying. I want out, baby. I want to die. And I think you might be the only person on planet Earth that can save my life. And I'm begging you, brother, will you save my life?" And he says, "It would be my honor. Be my honor." When people come up to me today and ask me to sponsor them, I know what they're saying. I know what they're saying. "I'm dying. I need help. I don't know how to do this deal. I need your help, brother. Would you please help me?" It's my honor to help these people. So this guy, Tommy, he tells me to come to his house the next day. And when I get to his house, I don't have my big book in my hand. And he says, "Where's your big book?" And I said, "Well, it's in my car." And he says, "When you go to a bar, would you leave your book in the car or your wallet in the car?" I said, "No." He goes, "When you come to my house, don't leave your book in the car. Bring your book with you." So I said, "Okay." Dude's a little intense, right? Okay. So I get the book, I come back and he wants it. He's asking me to hand it to him. So I handed over to him. It was a third edition big book. So 417 is actually page 449. And man, everybody's been pumping 449. Acceptance is the answer. Acceptance is the answer. Accept this, accept that, accept all things, accept this, accept that. You name it. That'll solve all of your problems, all that garbage. Right. And I'm sitting there, and this dude, he opens up to page 449, and my heart sinks. And I want to puke. I want to, again, second time, I want to punch him in the face because I know he's going to tell me acceptance is the answer to all of my problems. But this is what he does. He takes that page, he rips it right out of the big book, he crumbles it up, and he throws it on the floor. And he looks right at me and he says, "Acceptance is not the answer to all of your problems." He said, "Gaining access to a power greater than yourself, which will solve your problem, is the answer to all of your problems. Can you accept that?" And I said I could. And he said, "Come on and let's get to work." And we got into this book. And we took me through all of this book, and he took me through how I was playing God, how I had a God all along, right? And it was an evil God. I had my mom, she failed, alcohol, that failed. Then it's money, then it's women. And the worst God of all that I had been worshiping all along was the God of reason, my mind, that I thought that I had the answers to everything. I may not be right, but I'm all I think about. I may not be right, but I'm pretty sure the clock will be 12 o'clock at least twice a day. So on two times a day, I'm right. I'm going to stick with that. I'll stake my life on it. If plan A doesn't work, I'm sticking with plan A, guys. I'm sticking with plan A, right? Because I'm convinced it's going to work. I'm positive the moon is right there in the sky, while completely wrong the whole time. And I discovered that was the most evil God that I've ever turned my will and my life over to, was the God of reason, that I believe that I have the answers to everything, that I believe that my thoughts are the alpha and the omega, that I can figure this stuff out. It was one of the most misleading things that I've ever experienced, and it led me down these horrible paths. You hear these people talk about, say, just do the next right thing. Guys, don't just do the next right thing. Please just go to God, because I don't know what the next right thing is. Sometimes the next right thing is to punch somebody in the face, at least in my mind. I'm just telling you, that's the truth. Sometimes the next right thing is I'm not getting along with my wife. Well, I better get a side piece, right? Because you know she's going to leave me. That's the next right thing. You better just get ready. Get ready. She's going. Get something to land on, baby. Start setting up. Build camp somewhere else. That's the truth. That's the truth. Some of you are laughing. You know what I'm talking about. If you think if you're laughing, I promise you, you got what I got. That's the for sure. You ain't healthy. You need God just like I needed God. That's the fact, right? So here's the deal. I started to recognize all of this, and he said, "Listen, dude." I said, "Well, how am I going to find this God?" He said, "Do you have a willingness? Do you have a willingness? Do you have an open mind?" And I said that I do. And he said, "Do me a favor, don't ever borrow anybody else's God because it doesn't align with our big book. Our big book does not tell us to borrow anybody else's God. It tells us that we have to have our own personal experience with God, my own personal experience. And it tells us that I can create my own conception. I can't create my own God, but I can create how I conceive God. How am I going to conceive of God? What's going to be the one little thing that I can start with?" And we picked something. And he reassured me that no matter how inadequate, no matter how insufficient that was, that it was more than enough for me to make a beginning. And I stuck with that. Right. And then he took me into that third step, and we made this decision that I was going to turn my will and my life over to the care of God. There's no amen after that. And really, all that is me saying, "Hey, God, I'm going to make a deal with you. I'm going to give you my life. I'm going to let you love me. I'm going to let you care for me. I'm going to give you full governance over my life. And in return, I promise you, I will do whatever it is that you ask me to do." And then I'm going to follow through with the rest of these 12 steps. I'm going to go on to do this inventory and discover everything in myself, the stock in my trade, the things inside of me that have been blocking me off from you, God. Right. And this is what happened. I discovered one of the greatest promises that I've ever read in this book, that my problems were mostly of my own making. I discovered that when I read the book. I discovered that in the fourth step, that my problems were mostly of my own making. Why is that such a great promise and such a great discovery? Because that means I don't need any of you to ever change for me to be okay. I don't need anybody to change for me to be okay. Right. So I look at all these things that are objectionable on my inventory, and I go to God. And what's objectionable? It's objectionable that I drink. It's objectionable that I turn my will and my life over to the care of other people. It's objectionable that I turn my life over to the care of money. It's objectionable that I think I can run this whole deal and that I'm the alpha omega. It's all those things are objectionable. And the only thing that's going to be practical and pragmatic is that I open my mind and I allow God to come into my life, which is indeed miraculous. And we got three promises in our book, right? Three facts, rather. Three facts. We talk about the great fact, the central fact, and the tremendous fact, right? They're all three. You can find them all there, and there's a solution. And the great fact and the central fact is just this, and I'm going to finish up with this because I think you guys gave me an extra 2 minutes. That's very kind of you. I appreciate you because I go a little long. I'm telling you, you could put a zero on the end there, give me 20 minutes, still go because I'm just warming up, guys. You know, I get excited. If you heard me speak before, you know I get excited. And once I warm up, I'm ready to go. All right, so here we go. I promise you this is it. I'm going to read these two paragraphs and then we're going to wrap it up. It says, there is a solution. Guys, if you're wondering if there's a solution, you're wondering, it's in this book. It's right here. There is a solution. Almost none of us like the self-searching, the leveling of our pride, the confessions of shortcomings, which the process requires. It's required. Don't tell anybody there's no requirements. There are, baby. There are requirements. There's no requirement for membership, but if you want to recover, there are things that are required. It's just the deal. That's the way it is. I'm not making it up. For its successful consummation, for me to successfully complete this program, for me to successfully complete the 12 steps, these are the things that I must do. Then it goes on and says, but we saw that it really worked in others. I'm sitting in this room. It's not going to work for me, but I'm seeing, I see Purdy. I see, I see Maya. I see Chanel. I see all these other people. It's alive. Glenn, it's alive and well in their life. It's working for them. Is it going to work for me? Just do what they did. Follow their direction. Listen to them. Right? We have come to believe in the hopelessness and futility of life as we've been living it. When, therefore, we were approached by those with whom the problem had been solved, there was nothing left for me to pick up but the simple kit of spiritual tools laid at my feet. I have found much of heaven and have been rocketed into a fourth dimension of existence, which we had not even dreamed. Beyond my wildest imaginations, I get this relationship with God. Holy cow, dude. If you think a Ferrari is something, get a relationship with God, you'll be blown away. The great fact is just this and nothing less, that we have had deep and effective spiritual experiences which have revolutionized our whole attitude toward life, toward our fellows, towards God's universe. The central fact of our lives today is the absolute certainty that our Creator has entered into our hearts and lives in a way which is indeed miraculous, a miracle. This isn't luck, baby. This isn't by osmosis. This is miraculous. God is still performing miracles today in 2025. Miracles are alive and well. He has commenced to accomplish those things for us, which we could never do by ourselves. I don't care what it is that you are dealing with in these rooms here today, whatever your problems are, whatever your struggles are, God is sitting right there and he's saying, I love you. Please just come to me. Come here. I want to do this for you. I promise you I will care for you. I promise you I will protect you. I promise you I will keep you safe. I will take you to levels of your life that you have never seen before. See, the problem is not how much I love God. The problem is I don't know how much God loves me. God loves me more than I could ever comprehend. That is the fact of the matter, right? And the moment I start to experience that love and I let God into my life, it grows, it gets bigger and more powerful and deeper and more profound, right? And he does it on my good days. He does it on my bad days. He does it when I do good. He does it when I do bad, not because of me, but because of who he is, because he loves me no matter what, period. And I'm talking to every single buddy sitting in this room right now. He loves all of us. We're all his special children. Thank you so much for letting me share with you guys today. I apologize for going over.